For a family like the Lloyd Greames of Sewerby Hall, Christmas would have been very structured, mixing family activities with community duties and social expectations. Because of this, it's possible to reconstruct how the Lloyd Greames may have spent their Christmas, even though we only have snippets of first-hand information. The first, and often considered the most important duty for the family, would be to give Christmas presents to the servants. After their Christmas Eve dinner, the servants would be called together, perhaps at the foot of the stairs. Each would be given a gift whose value reflected their status and sometimes their role in the household, and it was not uncommon for maids to be given material to make their work dresses and aprons. Guests of the family would arrive throughout the course of Christmas Eve, and no doubt would all be there for the arrival of the carol singers. These were 6 girls and 6 boys from Sewerby School, who had spent the previous fortnight singing round the parish before finishing at the hall. After the carols, the children would be taken through to the servants' hall, where they would be given a substantial supper. After the carols, there was just one more thing to do. Yarborough George Lloyd Greame was nearly 70 in 1910, and his wife only a few years younger. But they did have 2 small grandchildren, and it is they who would have left out stockings for Santa. It was most probably Mrs. Henderson, the housekeeper, who, before retiring to bed, had the job of filling them with the morning's gifts on Santa's behalf. Christmas Day would begin with a buffet-style breakfast, followed by a visit from the village school children. The Lloyd Greames were patrons of the school, and all the children would be required to attend. The children would be taken into the servants' hall, where the housekeeper would give them each a bun. The footman then presented them with an orange, and the butler gave each of them a penny. As well as the children, the family's tenants would also come to the house. They would be received, no doubt, in Mr. Graham's study on the ground floor, and presented with a Christmas gift. These gifts, too, would be graded according to the tenant's status, and we know that in 1855 they included blankets, flannels, various articles of warm clothing, beef, coals, and corn. Christmas morning was a traditional day for sports, and games were organised and played for charity. The teams in these games were often strange pairings. For example, in 1906, the Bridlington Rugby Club hosted a match between the married men and the single men, the latter winning by 11 points. And in 1924, Bridlington YMCA took on the Bridlington Fishermen at football, who lost 6-2. But for the Lloyd Greames, Christmas morning was almost certainly spent attending the Christmas service at St John's, the estate church, before going back to the house for lunch. Christmas afternoon was a time for good works. There might be visits to sick and infirm tenants and neighbours. Both Yarborough Gamaliel Lloyd Greame and his son Yarborough George were guardians of the poor and presidents of the board of the Lloyd Hospital, and this offered a lot of scope for charity visits to the poor, needy and sick on Christmas Day. Good works done, it was back home for tea in the drawing room. By now it would be somewhere between 4 and 5 p.m. After tea there would be some free time. There would be games for the children and other entertainments for the adults. This would also be the time that the candles on the tree would be lit and the presents given out. Christmas dinner would follow. This would be about 8 or 9 p.m. and would be one of the few meals where children would dine with adults. Dinner might last several hours. At the end, a coffee and a brief soiree in the billiard room or drawing room before going to bed.